That's what we call real-time change. Can be super fast. Why? Because change travels at the speed of trust. Generally, if we want to hold change and if we want to foster anything that grows, from money to sustainability to anything in between or beyond, we need to understand how does that work in a human being and in a collective. And that's what we're going to look at today. So talking about individual consciousness first, let's get into that. What's the difference between individual consciousness and collective consciousness? Individual consciousness is what we were talking about last time, and we'll go more into it as in how does the individual growth work. We looked at walking the talk. What does it mean to actually embody something instead of just knowing about it? I hope you remember, cognitively knowing does not necessarily mean I can do it. It means I have a vision that I want to do it, but how do I actually do it? Especially when it's about change, I have to always start the change from within me. It's impossible to change something on the outside if I cannot hold it on the inside. I have a very beautiful situation at the moment. I've changed so much in the last year that right now I feel like I'm wobbly. You know, when you do something new and you work all your capacities towards something and then you actually do that, and then you stand there, and it's almost like if you're in a video game, you have a new level and you entered a new level. In the old level, you knew everything. You knew the different areas and where you, let's take jump and run, where you kind of had to collect stuff, etc. You have a new level, you have to orient yourself. And that's when you feel change on a cellular, somatic level in the body. Everything is new, orientation is so-so, and you're kind of traipsing around trying to get it right. And that's when change is really happening in the body. And when we want to change something with people, we have to understand that this is what we put them in. It will be, they will want to do it. And then when it's actually about time for things to happen, they might actually be wobbly because, okay, and then, you know, you get kind of scared of your own courage and you need to do this. So walking the talk is very different from wanting to do something. And the path of the change agent is basically inspiring others by living as an example. A boss is somebody who tells people do that. A leader is somebody who walks ahead. And that's a very big difference. And that's about embodiment. And how do we walk ahead? That's the path of the change agent. This has to come out of you. You have to be inspiring enough that people say, yes, let's do this. And then you will attract people that actually will come with you and you're not walking the path alone anymore. So this is all about individual consciousness. And what I'm going to give you now is a couple of frameworks. How does consciousness in human beings look like? There's tons of frameworks out there. I've tried to cluster them so it's easy to understand. The first thing that we're getting into is the tiers of consciousness. There is the first tier, the second, the third, and the fourth. Generally, people are aware of the first tier. The first tier of consciousness is our existing culture. Everything we live in, the rules that all the unspoken rules that we live by, that you, for example, knock when you go into a door, or you don't make a lot of noise if somebody's speaking. That's our culture. And that's first tier of consciousness. I always say that's the bare minimum that you know how to live in culture. And then it becomes more exciting. Then it's post-conventional, that's the second tier. Post-conventional are the real pioneers in the world. They change culture. They bring new ideas and then you say, oh, this is one way to do it. I didn't know that. Who were the big pioneers in the last century? One of the, if you go into women's movement, the suffragettes, they were pioneers. They changed things for the women then. And everybody who goes against some kind of, let's say, stark belief, some kind of boundary. Third tier consciousness is meta-aware. What's meta-aware? That means I understand when I enter a room everything that's going on at all times in every human being. Very rare thing to find in this world. There are people who can do this. And if you're in post-conventional, if you pioneer and you grow into that, and everybody of you guys has that moment when you just have a hunch, a gut feeling, then you peek into meta-awareness. You just know, I have to turn left here. I don't know why. It doesn't necessarily make sense, but I have to go there. And later you're like, ah. And if you're aware of these things, you can actually train that. It's called non-ordinary skills, and it's trained both by the CIA and a lot of comparable things, comparable institutions, and also by leaders. There's a couple leaders out there who actually train that. That's meta-awareness. And there's quantum consciousness, and that is very, very rare moments in brilliant people where they actually receive something. It's called the gamma frequency. So that's the tiers of consciousness. Why are we getting into that? We, as adults, we are growing through certain stages of consciousness. And I'm giving you these frames so you start to understand that cognitive learning is not all there is. The embodiment is called socio-emotional development. And that comes in stages. And you see certain stages here. And there is, you can see there's lines. And that here is the end of culture. So this is first year consciousness, all the way up to 4. So the big leaders in the world that we know right now that are leading large companies, they are usually here at stage 4, which means efficiency is everything they're on about, mastery, and the ego is cultivated and empowered. You will see the ego is never being killed in any of these models. The ego is also a player in the game. The question is, am I aware of it? Can I hold it? Where do I park my ego? And can the ego be something that is of use, or do I demonize it? That's like psychology part. But you see here is what's going on with the ego. Here is what's basically the underlying topic. I'll go into this shortly so you understand a little bit. And this in between here, between 4.5 and 5, that's the pioneering stage. That's second tier consciousness. There is third, and up there is the 4th. So that's what these lines mean. And you guys, anybody who's under 30, which I think is most people in the room, will be anywhere between 2 and 3.5. 3.5 is where our society is at home. It's about harmony. We call it peace. And that means we can kind of be together and everybody kind of compromises. It's not a bigger thing, but it's actually everybody kind of gives a little bit so we all fit into our culture. And skill and facts. That's why you're at university, to learn skill and to get enough facts. And then once you have that down, you become efficient. And the important thing about this framework is this is about your impulse reaction. So if I wake you at 4 in the morning and I say, I don't know, something's happening, you will impulsively react before you use the space between your ears to think of a better solution. And that's measurable in human beings. And the impulse reaction, if you know that of yourself, whereabout you are here, then you understand why life is challenging sometimes, because you can think ahead. You ask more of yourself than your impulse behavior. And that usually is quite a gap, especially if people have the capacity to hold high states of frequency, which means they're actually in creation a lot, or in intensity, or in activism. What does that mean? A person who is in these states, they hold a space properly. If somebody enters the room, I don't know, look at speeches of politicians that are really amazing, of activists. You just feel they're peaking somewhere. They have your full attention, and you feel them radiating with something that's bigger than them. Then they are in that kind of state. And that means to walk their talk, and they get themselves into that state. They have practice to do that. Which means if you can peak there, if you know how to do this, but your impulse reaction is somewhere here, very young activists in sustainability. We all know a couple of names. They're very young, and they can peak there, and they do the thing, but their impulse reaction is somewhere down here. For example, this one here. I'm fighting for my unique position. They are stretched like hell. They want to grow so bad because they can't embody this, but their impulse reaction is young. Because we all started the same. We cannot skip a single stage here. This is it's kind of emergent. It's coming through us, one after the other. And that is when you have a good leader, they can not only peak and inspire everybody, but they can then also walk their talk. And that's why usually when we get older, people feel like they have more integrity, or you respect them more because you kind of feel like they're actually doing the thing all the time and not just when they're on stage. Here, all the way up to 4 is individual consciousness. The collective consciousness starts at 4.5. This is where I'm only in myself. I do not feel so much what the others do. The only reason why I feel it is because I kind of need to get along here. I need to survive. I need to kind of be a part of this, let's say, university lecture, which means I have to kind of behave myself. That's why I'm constantly scanning. The brain works like that. The neurodiversity thing, You kind of really want to know what's going on subconsciously all the time, so you fit in. And that's what's going on all the way up till here. And then with the I am many, you understand, oh, I'm more than just that. I can do more. Can I? Can I not? People in that area are usually questioning themselves a lot all the time. And when you peak there, you understand there is more to me than what, I don't know, my parents told me, or my friends think of me, or my last relationship made me off. You understand there is more to me. And we always have these moments. It doesn't matter which stage you're mostly in. We walk this map all the time up and down. And the collective consciousness is 2 or more people, or an individual beyond stage 4.5. And what does that mean? What does it mean for leadership? That means if you have a person who understands, I am more than my, I don't know, person who is currently talking to you, but there is other roles that I actually embody. I'm also a mother. I brought my kid today because she has a day off. And I feel that all the time. I cannot ignore it. It's not something that I switch off. I don't know if any of you have kids, but if you have a kid, you cannot switch off your parenthood. It's constantly having you. And at the beginning, you struggle with this a lot because it feels like a distraction. But you learn to hold it at the same time. And then suddenly, you're not one person, but you're many. And the question is, what does it do to you? Usually, it makes you a happier person because you feel you can be more. Also, it gives you a lot of more perspectives because it makes you more relatable because people sense it in you that that's possible. And if you are social emotionally younger or in any kind of group, what you create is collective consciousness. And collective consciousness is like, we call it swarm intelligence and all these things. There is people who say together we are stupid. There's books named like that. Why is that? Because if we're unaware of our collective consciousness, we just follow the lead. So whoever is the loudest usually gets the most attention. We know that. That's dangerous. Last time I spoke about the difference between salience and relevance. I don't know if you remember. Salience is what's loud. Relevance is what's relevant. Not necessarily the loudest thing. So when you understand that you're in a group and you do know, okay, there's one person always the loudest, is that person necessarily a good leader? Or is somebody who's a bit quieter maybe more ideal to be a leader? Because people actually trust them. If you trust a person, that's always the leader in the room. Whoever gets the most trust is the most suitable for leading. The collective consciousness, so we can either say together we are stupid. We are only stupid together if we're unaware what we're doing. We're brilliant together if we know what we're doing. Then emergence can happen. What's emergence? Emergence is something where 1 + 1 is 11, not 2. That means we are more than the sum of our parts. So if 2 of you come together and you just talk, you have an idea, and then you feel this, how it bounces between the 2 of you, and something brilliant just happens. It's like, that's the idea, and now there it is. That's emergence. It's impossible for an artificial intelligence to do that. That's a big difference why AI can't be brilliant. AI can just combine what's already been there. That's why it's called the oracle of the past. Human beings can take what AI has beautifully combined or filtered out if you prompt it, and then have that as an inspiration to make it even more, have new ideas. That's the big difference. And that's in collective consciousness possible. So if you have grown individually beyond a certain stage, that means you can do this by yourself. If you can peak there beyond 4.5, because you know how to get into that state, you can do it by yourself. If you're younger and you just have a good conversation with somebody, you do it together. You just click. And something comes that is more that has been there before.